So this is a clip that went fairly viral from Synth Potato, friend of the channel, puts out some great stuff. But Synth Potato put this out and just was asking, how does a 9-year-old game look this good? What did they do with Arkham Knight visuals to have it age so well that it could come out today and hold up completely fine? Then they show a clip from this guy, Much118X, who posted this gameplay footage. And I think it's a sentiment that carries a lot of weight with a lot of people. Nick Tech, another guy that puts out some great stuff, also put out a video called "These Games Are 9 Years Apart," and it's literally just a side-by-side of Suicide Squad versus Arkham Knight, and it's jarring. I mean, it really is kind of crazy. But this reflects a feeling a lot of people have, which is that there were games in the PS4 era that looked insane, and in many ways I think even objectively look better shot for shot than modern games do. Games that cost 4 times as much to make and market. And there's a few reasons, okay? So for one, Arkham Knight used a lot of baked-in lighting. There was no dynamic day-night cycle. There was nothing like that. So they could bake in lighting for certain environments and certain light sources, which made it so they were able to run with much higher quality lighting, but lower impact on the hardware, which is why you could have much better quality lighting than even is running in these games, but it's still running in real time. It's just, it's baked in, so they can run that on older hardware. The other obvious consideration is that one of these games is a live service multiplayer game, and the other is a single player game that runs offline. When you only have one player, you can afford to spend more computational power on one player's perspective. There's less things to simulate. There's less things to worry about. Sometimes you can offload stuff onto the server side. So, enemy simulation, explosions, different things like that. But in general, it's easier to have higher fidelity in a single player game than in a multiplayer game. It's not that complicated. It's just how it works. So that's the super bare bones dumbed down version of it. But when you have baked in lighting, when you make an artistic / gameplay decision to not have a day-night cycle, to just have one time a day for the level or for the area, you can bake in the lighting and you can have very high quality lighting running on much weaker hardware. The other side of it too is that artistically, they were going for a very different vibe, I think, with Arkham Knight than they were going for with Suicide Squad. One of my problems with Suicide Squad, and honestly with a lot of these modern games, is that they are so focused on trying to be bright and vivid and colorful that the games all start to feel the same. And I was actually relatively recently speaking to an individual who is an art director and has worked on some pretty big, like multi-million-dollar games. And they were telling me how they really want to stand out, and there's pressure to do something unique and to do something that players don't expect and to not just do what was done before. And that pressure pushes them to try and go for the vivid colors, go for the brighter stuff, go for the more colorful stuff to try and stand out. But what ultimately just ends up happening is that everything ends up looking identical because everybody's trying to do the same thing. And in this case, I mean, it's the meme at this point that we kind of kickstarted was the glowing purple zits that you have to pop. A lot of games do this. I don't really know why this trend started. I don't know if there's other games, maybe like Destiny made it popular and then it just became super popular when everybody started doing it there. But there's some of those trends that have become ubiquitous across the industry, unfortunately. But I think it's just, we don't get games that are like this dark and gritty very frequently anymore. We get games like this that are bright and colorful and vivid. And I know sometimes people are like, oh, well, they're trying to appeal to the modern audience. I do think that's part of it. There is this weird assumption that people will come out of the woodwork to play your game if the colors are bright and vivid. And it's kind of insulting that they assume that players are so like lizard brained that they will find the game more engaging if the colors are bright. Like, oh, I wasn't liking the game before, but now they're bright purple color and I'm having fun now. Like, no, people don't, like, people are not that stupid. It's the same thing. It's the insulting tone too that's reflected with a lot of these games where they're like, oh, well, this character looks exactly like you. Now you'll play it, right? You're like, no, I want a good game. I want a fun game. And they're like, What? You were making sense and then you said something insane. I'm sorry. I just want a game that plays well and is fun. But they look like you and they kind of talk like you. I don't care. I want a game that is just fun and that I can enjoy with my friends and that has a good story and interesting gameplay. I'm sorry. You are making no sense right now. Let me spell it out clearer. There are bright colors and they dress like you. They have student loans just like you. What is there to not love? There is just no comprehension of the other side of it. And it really is baffling. Honestly, I think the bright colors in games is a phase. It'll be there for a while, but every game from 2006 to 2010 was gray and brown. I expect the balance to be restored in a few years. I actually totally agree, Banana Brains. I think so. I think right now there's this trend chase of everything's bright and vivid and colorful. And I think that will mellow out after a little while, and it'll probably swing really hard the other way, just like you're alluding to back at the in like the 2006 era. I think it'll swing so far the other way where we start to get every game looking kind of like Arkham Knight, where everything's just really dark and high contrast. Everything looks like Alan Wake 2, basically, and that's totally, you know, I prefer that, frankly, than this, but I do think that's going to happen. You know what this also reminded me of? This shot right here with Harley Quinn when she's grabbed and then she starts elbowing the guy in the head. Do you remember in Arkham City, the Catwoman counter? Oh man, Arkham City was so good. Oh, I miss this game so much. Imagine that much cleavage in any Warner Brothers game today. Jesus. But wait till she gets grabbed. I want to see if she does the counter. There's one specific counter that they would not do today, I'll tell you what. Jeez, the animations are so fluid too. It's just not even close. It's specifically when she's getting attacked from the back. This person's too good to let anybody on, like, to their back, though. Am I just not going to find it? This person is just too good. 66 critical strike combo. Wow, dude. I remember the first time. I was young. I was a little fella. But I remember the first time I got the 100 combo, the 100x combo, and I felt like a god. Yeah, I'm not gonna find it. The one I'm looking for is there's one combo or one counter she can do where if somebody grabs her from behind, she does this thing where she like grabs them, leans back, kisses them, and then throws them over her shoulder. And the idea of them doing that in a game today is so insane. Like, actually, she didn't like fully consent to that. It's like, I can only imagine the outrage that would ensue if they tried to do that. It would be unparalleled. This era of gaming was something else, dude. And they also sped up the animations when you got to these high combo streaks. So you started to just go like particularly crazy with it. Just look how fluid everything is, man. Oh, those were the days. Those were the days. But anyway, with this, why would you want to put your mouth on this? I always thought it was weird. I remember being like a little 13-year-old, whatever, playing Arkham City, and I saw Catwoman do that. I was like, did she? What? She just did that, didn't she? Like, it was always weird and crazy, but it showed how like Catwoman was able or was willing to use her sexuality, let's say, in combat to get literally whatever she wanted, just to take somebody down or to knock them out, whatever. Like it communicated that part of her character, but the idea of it happening nowadays is insane. And now this is the other thing. A lot of games now have this low contrast filter put over top of them, and I really dislike it. I really, really dislike it. It's like they're just terrified of having any like dark shadows or black in the frame anywhere. And you just compare like the levels of contrast in shadows and stuff from the left to the right. I thought this was maybe that they had captured footage in SDR, but it was actually outputting at HDR. Maybe that's why it looks so flat. But no, I booted up the game and it is just that flat. They just have this low contrast filter put over top. Starfield does the same thing. They have anywhere in the game you go, they have a filter applied to the top of the screen. There's mods. One of the most popular mods in all of Starfield's like creations thing is to just disable that filter because people like just don't like it at all. Yeah, those are the days. But I do think that there's a real sentiment, a real desire for it nowadays. I just think people want more intensity. They want more punch. They want bolder stances than just trying to make something generically appealing to everybody. And, you know, Arkham Knight, it's not a perfect game. A lot of people are like, why did everyone say this game was bad? Compared to other 2015 titles, it was not the best game of that year. It just wasn't. It had problems. The Arkham tank sections slow that game down to a crawl. But you know what? Arkham Knight in 2015 as an 8 out of 10 would be like a 2024 Rocksteady 10 out of 10. It's just that for a lot of these studios, their standards have seemingly dropped a lot, while players' expectations and standards have either remained or risen. And so it makes the disparity seem so exaggerated, you know, really, really exaggerated. This video is hilarious. What is this one? Someone swapped the Batwoman and someone swapped the Batman and Catwoman models. Okay, let's see. What is this? already the sassy butt swing in the walk already, dude, makes you really appreciate motion capture. I'll tell you what, that's pretty funny. The sass.
Fresh air, freedom, and darkness.
Oh
Perfect.
God. That's the thing, though, is nowadays they'll have Catwoman animated like this, just very rigid and very, like, they would never have this much sass. Oh my God.
How should we celebrate? I know a couple of poor, defenseless museums, but then again, I also know a couple of hotels.
Tonight's not over yet. There's more work to be done.
Of course there is. You do know how to kill the mood. Do you ever take the night off? Do you ever take the suit off?
Not on nights like this, Selena. It's what I do.
Fine.
The like closed off chest too, to like push the boobs together. That's the thing I did not expect to see Batman do ever. This is not on my bingo card.
I'll hit an art gallery or two while the big bad bat's distracted.
You're not going to thank me?
Why? It's what you do.
Dude, that is so good. That is so good. Well done, Banana, for pulling that one up. That's fantastic. That is so good. Yeah, just wait. That's the new Batman game they're working on. I'll tell you what. That's the new one. Oh my God, that's so good. To go back to the initial thing we were talking about. Okay, back focusing in to the original prompt of this segment. How do these games from a decade ago still look so good and look even better than modern games? A lot of it's art direction. A lot of it is they were making their own little statement. They weren't trying to follow the trends as closely. They were kind of making their own. There wasn't another game that looked or ran like Arkham Knight when it came out. And it still is a phenomenal game even to this day. I think it's too bad that such talent has been wasted. Like the people that did this are still out there working in the industry. They're somewhere. I don't think they're at Rocksteady anymore, unfortunately, but this is we're capable of doing this. This is possible. Okay. We could do this. Arkham Knight, part of the reason people are like, oh, well, if it's this good, why didn't it get more praise when it launched? For one, because it was super hella broken at launch on, I think it was PC. The PC port was utterly atrocious. It was really, really bad. They didn't develop it. They handed it off to, I think, Iron Galaxies to do, and it was just a mess. So that was one part of it. Second part, the Batman tank stuff absolutely tanks the pacing of the game. And you can tell they developed this tank and we're like, okay, this is cool. How do we use it in the game more? Because we spent so much time and money developing this, we got to put it everywhere. And so the big like final encounter is mostly a tank fight. And it doesn't even make sense. Like at one point there is dialogue from the Arkham Knight where he's like, and I bet you're wondering why I didn't just put people into the tanks or into my android, whatever he calls them, to take you down since you're afraid of killing. But I didn't do that because that would have been just too easy. It's like your supervillain enemy, the villain of this game, openly describes how he could just beat Batman. Just have him swarmed with these bots, these tanks. And if Batman can't kill people, he can't blow up the other tanks. So you'll just beat him and you win, which is the goal, right? And he's like, no, but that would be too easy. It's very contrived. It's very stupid. You could have flipped it so maybe the Arkham Knight doesn't have enough like actual human followers, so he had to rely on the androids instead, and so that's why he had it. Like the Riddler challenges are all robots. You could have done it that way, but instead they did this weirdly contrived thing. So there were issues with Arkham Knight. It's not a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination. It's just compared to modern games, it stands out as remarkable. I don't think that's because it was particularly, I think that's more because modern games from these studios have been so bad that this game seems like a 10 out of 10 in comparison. But when you look back on it in 2015 compared to the other games releasing in that era, it had problems that were worth calling out. But I do think that expectations have been kind of shaken, you know, in the last few years. The other one he posted, Synth Potato posted, was of course screenshots of Red Dead 2. This is a game that ran on the PlayStation 4. This ran on 2013 hardware and looked like this. It was both technologically stunning and also artistically stunning. It's phenomenal. What's happened in the last 6 years? 6 years have gone by. Yeah, it ran on the base Xbox One. You could play this on your cable box. You can play this on your cable box multimedia device. You could do it. And nothing else is quite on this level. I mean, it's what you typically see with Rockstar games is like they release something and then 5, 6, 7 years later, everybody else starts to catch up to the same technological level and same fidelity levels. Maybe they don't do the simulation as well, but you know, I remember with GTA 5, there was the thing where Michael could walk into the ocean up to his like chest and then walk back out of the ocean on the beach, and his shirt would be wet to the level he walked up to. And that was like brain melting. I mean, the idea that you could do that. And then later, other studios were able to do that and pull that off. Naughty Dog was able to do that, but a lot of other studios just either never did it, never went that far, or, you know, it eventually got there, but it took a while. But it feels like in the last 6 years, since the end of the PS4 era, we've just had basically no real progress. We've had ray tracing, which helps in certain instances, but the cost of ray tracing performance has been terrible for a lot of games, and they've relied on DLSS upscalers and FSR upscalers to get to proper frame rates and resolutions. But it doesn't feel like games look particularly better than they did at the end of last generation. It doesn't feel like there's been this leap or step forward. It feels like studios are just struggling to maintain the status quo. And it's really frustrating because you'd hope that they would be able to make big leaps forward. But maybe we start to see that in the next year or two with games like Ghost of Yotei, created from the ground up for PS5. We start to see stuff from Santa Monica Studio. We start to see stuff from some of these other places, and maybe that's when they start to be able to stand out more and take big leaps forward.